Welcome back to Third Phase of Moon. Blake Cousins, we've got the special report for you tonight. Nexus to Disclosure, The Truth is Classified. It's available right now on Amazon and Apple TV, and people are raving about this incredible documentary with regards to the powerhouse of women that have been involved for UFO disclosure for many, many years. And it's my pleasure to bring in the whole entire cast of Nexus to Disclosure in today's episode. And let me tell you, it's a powerhouse. We're going to bring in Linda Moulton Howe from the Earth Files, famous in her work for ufology, investigator, Emmy Award winner, you name it. Linda's been on the front line of disclosure. Plus, we have Carrie Cassidy from the Project Camelot. And let me tell you, Carrie's been a major advocate with regards to disclosure as well, and the investigative reporting and the multiple eyewitnesses and whistleblowers. It's my pleasure to bring in Carrie Cassidy, as well as Laura Eisenhower, great-granddaughter of the President Eisenhower himself, and her knowledge of behind the scenes of disclosure is vast. And let me tell you, the hard work she's been put in, it's again a major role in Nexus to Disclosure. And it's another to the panel, including Yvonne Smith. She's been working with hypnotic regression and dealing with people that have been supposedly abducted by aliens. And through the research that Yvonne's been doing and bringing in the whole aspect of this collective conscious of abduction, there's no other than Yvonne Smith with regards to her work. And we also have Apolla Asteria, the director of Nexus to Disclosure. It's her brainchild. She brought in her network of the top female people with regards to disclosure, and we got them in this documentary. So let's blow things up right now. This is quite incredible. I'm humbled to be among you women right now in the hard work in this incredible panel discussing disclosure, what's coming up in the future, what some of you women have done in the past to get to this point, and we're just going to get it started. Let's just roll the trailer first for Nexus to Disclosure right now.
The government of the United States, since the 1940s, has classified reality. That's where we are, in classified reality. The truth is classified.
This is probably the most dangerous field to be in because they really don't want humanity to know the kind of information that we put out there.
And we have breaking news now, a Pentagon review of decades of government investigations into UFO sightings.
It's a war for truth. It's a war for disclosure. The American public, they really want to know. They're tired of being lied to.
We've had a heck of a lot of pushback about this hearing. We've had members of Congress who fought us. We've had members of the intelligence community and also the Pentagon.
There were some attempts on my life.
I've had many death threats.
We're following you. We know where you are.
Let's face it, disclosure's a dangerous game.
There is way more to this picture than we can imagine.
These extraterrestrial biological entities manipulated DNA in already evolving primates to create Homo sapien.
The biggest threat to them is our sovereignty.
Operation Majestic 12 is created.
This all needs to come out. The truth needs to come out. I think humans need to get ready.
Extraterrestrials are here. They have been based beneath the basins of the oceans and seas of planet Earth for thousands, millions of years.
We're dealing with gatekeepers and a total suppression of information and knowledge.
The leaders, everyone, telling all humans the truth.
These people are idiots. I mean, these people who think they are in charge.
I'm going to pick up what I personally think is the single most important whistleblower leak.
At some point, our government is no longer going to have control over this.
All right, we're back, and that's the trailer. Go watch it. But first, let's get to this discussion and just stick around. We're going to get into a lot of stuff today. So, Linda, let's just start it off with you. I know this is incredible that this documentary is out. Your hard work has been seen by millions around the world. Your investigative journalism. Basically, I think everybody on the panel kind of looks up to you, Linda, for the work and the leadership in this disclosure movement. And thanks for being here. Linda, what do you make of working with the panel here, working with Apolla, and this whole idea of how we're going to bring the people the truth? Because we named Nexus to disclosure that truth is classified based on some of the statements you say. Why is the truth classified, and should it be reversed immediately?
Well, one of the first levels that I feel is sadness. This is the 45th year that I began investigations in 1979, bloodless, trackless animal mutilations, lights over ranches and in fields where the animals were found, linked to people talking about being taken in beams out of their houses. And I remember that in the September of 1979 was a meeting that would ricochet and echo up to today as we are in April of 2025. And that was going to see the sheriff in Northern Colorado that everybody recommended, that he had been dealing with 100, 200 animal mutilations. And the day that I sat in his office and he said, Linda, I want to show you 166 color Polaroids I've taken myself. That's evidentiary in a court of law as sheriff. And he came to one particular case. He wasn't explaining, I'm looking at the Polaroids. And it was a 1,700-pound steer, and the head was down in a hole about 8 or 10 inches. And the body was completely and perfectly laid out on dust. There was no plants, it's all dust. And he said, you can see for yourself. As the deputy and I approached this animal, I brought my hand up and I said, stop. I don't want our footprints to come in here. Let's stay 12 feet out. Let's do a 360 around this animal, photographs, and they were doing Polaroids. And he concluded that whatever it was that was behind this mutilation, it had the ability and the power to hold the 1,700-pound steer in place on the ground in dust, and there was not a single track around that body, including the animal's own tracks. And he said, this is my first sheriff interview. Linda, how do you think this animal got on its side with its legs out and the head is down in a 10-inch hole? And I said, well, I hear the UFOs have beams they can pick up, put down. And he said, yes, and we have witnesses who have seen those beams. If you are open-minded there, you are at the beginning of what is a genuine mystery of the relationship of what is it in the sky that has this ability? What are they doing? Why are they doing this to cattle and what else? Well, now, today in 2025, I can tell you it's been around the world. It includes kangaroos in Australia. Animal mutilations are a part of this vast story. And Whitley Strieber and I have talked about this just recently, that there had always been suspicion that that was being used for something that might be medicinal. It might be something to keep beings alive. And Whitley Strieber has come to the conclusion from some research just recently that the blood fluid chemistry in mutilated animals, because they're cattle, has a different copper, that the structure of the copper in the blood of cattle is different from the copper in the blood of humans, for example. This is 45 years later, and we still have not even been told the truth. We're not alone in this universe. We have never been alone in this universe, and it's beginning to be preposterous that we are kept at a distance from the truth. That's why I have always said, this is so weird that reality is classified.
Incredible. Let's take a quick clip from the film itself, Nexus to Disclosure. Here's Linda Moulton Howe in her first kind of steps into disclosure and the mystery of cattle mutilation. Listen up.
And it was that day, that phone call with the ABC network in New York City, that I said, I want to find out what is happening to these battery belts and why it's interfering with the power to the camera.
Documentary filmmaker Linda Howe refers to the mutilations as an alien harvest. Howe has followed up on hundreds of cases and says whatever cut open these cattle didn't use a knife or pinking shears. Pathologists have told Howe that the cuts went between rather than through the animal's microscopic cells. A laser capable of doing such work would approximate the size of an office desk, hard to cart out into an open pasture.
And from that day in September of 1979 until this day in April of 2024, 45 years later, I tried to find out what was happening between the animals and the battery packs. And that took me out into the pastures where the animals were dead with no blood around them and no tracks.
Howe's investigations have found an unusually high correlation between mutilations and UFO sightings. In some cases, the strange lights in the sky are soon followed by mystery helicopters, leading some to speculate that the UFO mutilators are being monitored themselves by someone with a lot of helicopters. The lack of blood or tracks, the sophistication of the cuts, occasional tripod-like indentations found near the bodies. To Howe and others, this all adds up to UFO.
I have investigated hundreds of animal mutilation cases that are bloodless, they are trackless, and probably to bring all of this to the focus that it needs to be.
Scattered stories of carved up livestock and strange lights in the sky date back to the 1890s in the U.S., but it wasn't until the early 1970s that a pattern began to emerge. A mutilation explosion rocked Midwestern, then Western states. Then, as now, the main targets were cows.
All right, that was a clip from Nexus to Disclosure. And let me tell you, there's a lot of stuff that goes into the history behind these women. And Linda, obviously, veteran with regards to this study and the investigative journalism to get to the truth. And step by step, just like you said, 45 years later, we're still learning things with regards to your investigation. Now, let's take it to Carrie Cassidy. Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot. For you people that don't know, she's been doing this a long time, over 2,000 interviews, huge social media, and talking to a lot of whistleblowers. Carrie, it's exciting that we're getting this whole collaboration of these minds in this documentary. Carrie, can you tell us on how you got you started? I know you like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and these sci-fi movies got you inspired. But when you started to get your feet wet into this, what was your first indicator that you knew something was up, that this is an absolute cover-up of the truth?
Well, I knew it since I was a child because I was abducted as a child. And I always knew there were, I could see dead people, as they say, and I knew there were aliens, and I knew nothing was the truth. And I just became, as a young girl, I guess you might say, aware that everybody was lying about everything. And I rebelled. I was very rebellious in school. I talked back to my teachers, that sort of thing. I've never changed. So I got into the motion picture business for 20 years. And I decided at the end of that, because I reached a glass ceiling, I couldn't get movies made because I wasn't one of the old boys in the Old Boys Network, that I would pick up a consumer grade camcorder and start interviewing people. My first interviews were with people like Rich Dolan, speakers at the conferences, and Jim Mars and others. And I put a camera in front of their face, and I would ask them if they'd seen a UFO. And because they would get on stage and talk all night and all day about the craft, but back in those days, they didn't want to talk about the aliens. So they didn't talk about abductions. And so I wanted to ask them, had they ever seen a UFO? Did they have any direct experience? And they, they didn't in most cases, although once in a while they did have some little story, like Rich Dolan said he saw a UFO with one of his kids, that kind of thing. So that was the beginning. And then I met my partner at the time, Bill Ryan. He was English, and he was representing serpo.org. Actually, he was just the public face of a website that was run by the DIA with what it happened at the end of Close Encounters, which is an alien human exchange program. And it was run by the DIA, and that was a disclosure of a kind in a movie. And so basically we decided to team up, and I taught him how to use the camera. And he was a coach, an adult education kind of coach, and an Indiana Jones type. And we decided to travel the world interviewing whistleblowers from above top secret. And that's exactly what we did. We only lasted as partners for about 2.5 years. We had differences of opinion. We had people trying to break us up. And so I took over Camelot and went my own way, since I'd really started it back in the day. And Bill went over to a Project Avalon forum and was kind of interested in discussing things with the public in that forum type setting. So so I mean, I have known my whole life that people are lying to us, that our government's lying to us. I had investigated the occult. I knew about the Illuminati when I was 12 years old. And so, there was nothing, any mystery, any conspiracy to me was a good word. It meant there was something worth looking into. So that's what I did.
Absolutely incredible. And, again, just dealing with this topic and being on the front line, there comes sometimes a little bit of danger and harassment and intimidation. And I know all of the women on the panel have experienced some form of that. Let's just roll a clip from Carrie Cassidy right here in Nexus to Disclosure. Take a look at this.
There's danger in disclosure in the sense that if you don't tell the people the truth, then they're not going to be able to protect their children. And there's a lot of perception of danger in telling the truth. So that's why my colleagues try to go along and get along. They kiss ass as far as I'm concerned. They try to hide certain pieces of the truth. So I think the biggest danger is only telling a partial truth, so that people are not prepared for the future. Their children are not prepared for the future. And therefore, the real danger is on humanity, not me personally. Now, I can say that I'm protected. I've had many death threats. I've had, them trying to kill us and kill me in particular. I've, been told that they were gonna aim, go after me and all this kind of thing. They have done. Something is protecting me. I also think that on a certain level, I think maybe this is, just me, but I think I've kind of garnered the respect of the dark side, of the Illuminati, in part because I actually studied them. I studied their work, and so I understand how they think. And I'm not. It's not so much that I'm definitely on the side of the light, but I don't mind telling people why certain things are happening and how the light and the dark work together, the yin and the yang in our lives, to actually make us who we are, and that we're not going to have a golden age where everything is hunky-dory and all that nonsense. We're living in the most insane kind of a prison planet, and anyone who has the guts to rebel should be honored, and anyone who kisses their ass and does what they're told without question should be dishonored and basically looked down upon. And I think that our children need to be taught how to be, like I said, warriors.
All right, that was a clip from Nexus to Disclosure. The Genius link's below. Everybody could go watch it right now. But first, let's stick around a little bit. We got a lot to discuss with this panel. Now, let's take it out to Laura Eisenhower. great granddaughter of the president. A lot of connections with that proxy. There's going to be a lot of aspect that comes along, the good, the bad. And I think Laura's kind of gone her own way in a straight line, kind of separating both sides and having her own angle on disclosure and making her own kind of name for herself, not necessarily with her great grandfather, but just being Laura Eisenhower and doing her things her own way. And she's been speaking around the world with regards to disclosure. Laura, again, some of the intimidation factor, I know you've dealt with it, but again, what was your first kind of experience that you knew that there was something going on, that this wasn't science fiction, but science fact, that there's this big secret that's being held from the world itself?
Oh gosh, yeah. Very early on, I just felt it. Coming into this family, I felt this passion, this drive, this urgency to really uncover so much that has been kept hidden. And when I first observed, this world, as we're growing up, we just observe our environment. I could pick up on the programmings. I would watch the news, or I would look in the history books, or just sitting in science class. I just knew that there was more to the story. I was having experiences as well on a multidimensional level. I felt I was communicating with beings, guides, even Eisenhower. And there was just this purpose in me that was so strong to begin to lift and peel back all the different layers that keep us from the truth, because the pillars of our society have been infiltrated with social engineering and false narratives, and the educational system and the medical industry. Just every pillar of society has really created a humanity that doesn't think that there is a much, much bigger picture. So those of us that are in this field that have ventured outside of the classroom, we know that there's a much bigger picture. And in presenting this information, it's not taken seriously because you didn't learn that in elementary school or high school about our galactic history, about UFOs or government ET alliances or treaties or anything like that. So I feel like it was a major catalyst being born into the Eisenhower family. And from the get-go, I was just wanting to uncover the truth. And that was my intention. And that was my drive and inspiration. And so running into a lot of different things said about my great-grandfather in connection with signing a treaty with great ETs was definitely something I wanted to explore. I was recruited to go off planet. So I had a targeting on me since I was a child to take me down a timeline that I didn't want to go down, which also put me through a lot of contemplation, a lot of rabbit holes and deep digging. And what I found was that there's a lot of false narratives. It wasn't Eisenhower that signed a treaty with the Greys. There's a deep state that is infiltrated that is a lot older than this administration, than his administration and the one that we're currently in. And this shadow government that operates behind the scenes has a lot of information and a lot of technology. There's hidden secret space programs. There's alien tech that is being used. And while we exist here as humans, we don't realize that we're going down a potential trajectory of an artificial timeline that's been engineered. So in order to get to the bottom of it, we have to look at, is history being rewritten? Is our government going to bring about disclosure? What are all these sightings and all these individuals that are coming out with stories that have been contacted or abducted? Secret space programs, super soldiers as well, breeding programs. I mean, there's millions of people that are speaking up. So we are in a time where these voices have to be heard. Disclosure is going to come from the people. The government has to hold space, if it's going to be an administration for disclosure, to make sure that all the different compartments have doors that are open, so there's no longer compartmentalism, so that we can really begin to see how interconnected everything is. And that's going to take everybody being willing to put this out on the table and be a part of this larger conversation. Share your stories, your experiences. The whistleblowers, we have to take them seriously. We have to listen to people and begin to unlock the true mysteries of ourselves. Where was our DNA manipulated? Why has all this been hidden? What is the end goal? So I like to look at the positive side of all of this, is that the more we know, the more we're going to discover our dormant DNA, our relationship with our galactic heritage, higher dimensional beings, and that there is a small group of nefarious beings, though, that have formed an alliance with our governments that want us to stay dumbed down and controlled and want these things hidden. And the belittling or the smear campaigns or just all the different tactics they use to cover this up, well, it's not covered up anymore. The lid has been lifted. And so I'm just grateful to be with everybody that is a part of this, that has dedicated their life to this mission. Because really, when it comes down to it, it's humanity's mission is to awaken, right, to who we truly are and what's been actually going on. And once we get a grip on all of that, we are going to have a lot more control over our destiny, and we'll be able to remove ourselves from anything vampiric or anything that wishes to control us or use our genetic material in a weaponized way. And then we'll also understand how much benevolence there is out there that is looking to connect with us so that we awaken to the multidimensional nature of all that we truly are.
Yeah, Linda, I think you're right. Strength in numbers and the collective consciousness of this subject matter, the more people participate, the more people that ask questions, that's the closer we get to disclosure. And disclosure is in the public's hands. The government's never going to tell us what's really going on, in my opinion. But here, let's take a quick look of Laura Eisenhower in Nexus to Disclosure, The Truth is Classified.
There are many pros and cons connected to disclosure being rolled out to the public. It really has to come from the right individuals. There's going to be a lot of confusion amongst people, but a lot of relief, because so many people walking amongst us that might not understand this information actually have begun to research it. It's way more widespread than we can imagine. I run into people all the time that just strike up these kind of conversations or are open-minded to this sort of information. Documentaries have been put out. There's been a lot of predictive programming in movies, but there's so much going on that got so overwhelming to them that they chose to censor it all. So it being rolled out, a lot of individuals and humans are more ready than we give them credit for, and it was never a good idea to assume that humans aren't ready for this kind of information. I don't feel that humans are ready for any more world wars or any more lies or any more tactics to throw us into any kind of survival. I think we've had enough. Most humans have had enough. But when it comes to disclosure, it has to be in the right hands because these technologies have to be used correctly. There will be negative AI and more positive AI. It has to be in the right hands because AI can be used for medical purposes and to do jobs or work that we might not want to do as humans, but a lot of people are going to be out of work. So I feel that there has to be an adjustment period and there has to be a lot of rehabilitation for those who have been traumatized, and there needs to be a lot of exposure of the crimes against humanity and those that have had technologies that have been misusing them. Like 5G and just how our food has been tainted and all the different dark agendas that have played into, climate change. And I mean, I think we need to come to terms with all of that, expose it for what it is before we have a mass rollout of disclosure. Because once that happens, after all this nefarious activity is disclosed for what it is, then we'll be more able to handle technology in a way to help humanity recover.
All right, so there it is, Nexus to Disclosure, a quick clip of Laura Eisenhower and some of her statements. Now, one of the other topics that kind of has gone to the wayside, I don't hear it in the government. They're bringing in whistleblowers, but they're not bringing in experiencers. And that's where Yvonne Smith really cut her teeth in, where she, thousands of interviews with her techniques through hypnotic regression, talking to alien abductees and their insight and their experience with these off-worlders, people things that are not from this earth. And some of these encounters is it's interesting because there's a lot of similarities going on. But Yvonne, through this hypnotic regression techniques and the people that you're dealing with, a lot of them want to remain anonymous, but they all have this urge that they want to tell their story. And I think your platform is one of the places that people gravitate to because they're accepted, and it's kind of a group therapy almost, because it is traumatic, I would imagine. Yvonne, what was your first impression, or how'd you find out, like, wow, there's really something to this. This can't be somebody dreaming or they're making things up. This is something that's actually happening.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe I've been doing my work now for 34 years. I first attended a lecture from Bud Hopkins with my mother. She knew who he was. My mother was in metaphysics, a very psychic lady. But I was very intrigued in what he was talking about. And then I began looking into it more, studying hypnotherapy. And believe it or not, and I don't know, Linda, this is a long time ago, but Bud Hopkins introduced me to Linda Moulton Howe when they were both doing a interview. Bud used to fly in from New York and stay with me and my family, my young family, my two children, my husband at the time, and I would drive him around, to do the different interviews and so forth. And, he became my mentor. And so when I started work, I graduated from hypnotherapy college and I started working with cases. I was amazed by the similarities running through each case. I still am. I wouldn't have been devoting my 34 years in this. Because of COVID now, I do one-on-one sessions in my office, but now I'm doing Zoom sessions. And now I have clients from all over the world because now I'm able to reach out to more people. Now, even though we were all in quarantine, these experiences were not stopping. And I have to thank COVID for that, something positive that came out of it. But back when I started this, I was working with the A-listers. I was so very fortunate to have traveled with Bud, John Mack, David Jacobs, and Linda. And Linda, I remember, you probably don't remember this, Linda, but I remember we spoke on the phone. And when I started my work, I think one of the first films I saw was Strange Harvest. And I told her, Linda, your film scared the hell out of me. The music and just what was happening. And because of her work, I just dove completely, into this work myself. And I agree with Laura wholeheartedly. I've been saying this for the last few years in my lectures, that our government is not going to drive disclosure. It's going to be the experiencers, the abductees. I've worked with military people who have come forward to talk about their abduction experiences. And it's going to be more and more people like this coming forward. And I'm stepping out of comfort zone now, but I did that last year at Contact in the Desert. After over 3 decades, I was regressing this one lady from Germany and went through the regression. Everything was about the same like all the other regressions. And then she stopped and she said, there's a being here that wants permission to talk to you, wanted to talk to me. And I thought, oh my God, what's happening? So I said, of course. The being came through and told me, this was last May, that they're going to be showing themselves more and more. And as they do, our government is not going to be able to explain it away. And they're not going to be going to and contacting our government or government people. They're going to be contacting those of us who've had experiences, the experiencers, the abductees. They told me they are not going to go to mainstream media because they are tired of the lies and the cover-up. Now, in my 34 years, this has never happened to me before, but I was told I'm supposed to tell people this. I've had other messages. I'm going to be sharing more at Contact in the Desert. And I figured, you know what, I'm 72 years old. If people think I've lost it after all these years, fine. I'm just giving the message. I'm just putting the message out there that this disclosure is going to happen, but not the way some people think, and not the way our government thinks that they're going to have control over this. Because, as Laura said just a while ago, that they're losing control. And when the November, December, quote unquote, drone sightings were happening, they weren't drones. That's when I knew there they are. They're starting to show themselves. I mean, all over. So we'll just wait and see. Things are happening. Things are moving forward. We still have an uphill battle with presenting abduction cases to the government. Hopefully the next congressional hearing, they are going to cover, or at least begin to cover, that people are having contact. So we'll see what happens there. I hope I get an invitation, because I have a lot to tell people. So thank you for doing this. I think the film is wonderful. I'm proud of all of us. Thank you for Apolla. Thank you for highlighting, and Blake highlighting, the women in this field, because we've kind of been, it's been the old boys club, but not anymore. We're powerhouses.
Oh,
I
thanks,
can
Yvonne.
add that I got a message today from Luna's office, the Congress, and they're going in May upcoming. They're going to have maybe some hearings, and she's trying to do another congressional hearing by June. So the very fact that it has now been at least that much been distributed, let's hope that nothing changes it. Because Luna really has some solid information. She wants to get it out, and cheers.
Yes, cheers.
Yeah,
Thank you, Linda.
Luna's created the task force, no doubt about it, and she's got her eye on the ball. And let's roll a quick clip from Yvonne Smith's testimony right here on the documentary Nexus to Disclosure.
Disclosure is not going to happen by our government. They just came out with that statement from the Pentagon. This doesn't exist. It's not real. It's going to be the people. It's going to be the people from our United States and around the world that will drive, because they're going to be coming out in mass, will drive the disclosure. The mainstream media will no longer have control over the stories. Our government will no longer have control over the story. There's going to be things happening that they're not going to be able to deny. And everybody else, they're going to realize that people, just everyday people having these experiences, they're going to have their day. And I feel that that's how disclosure is going to come out. Without the government, without mainstream media, it's going to be the truth.
All right, that's Yvonne Smith and some of the statements with regards to some of her work and her experience in this field. And it's not easy. And let me tell you, just everybody on this panel's worked their butts off. Sorry to say, but it's just so much work and dedication. It's awe-inspiring. And when Apolla approached the Cousins brothers and said, I got this idea about another disclosure project, and she's putting out these names, we're like, wow, that'd be amazing to see this whole thing come together. And it actually has. It's wrapped up and it's delivered, and public's watching it, and it's quite incredible what Apolla's been able to do. And it's all kind of network too. This was a lot of proxy work, a lot of remote kind of filmmaking, but it got all put together, and I think it turned out great. Apolla, what do you think when it was all kind of set in stone that everybody here was going to participate, and you were starting to get these interviews, and the content was coming in, and the editing process, and how it all turned out?
I've been really excited to put this project together for a very long time. I'd have to say that this was definitely a nexus of my career in a way, because it brought together different aspects of my work over the years in regards to entertainment and being a UFO investigator, and really kind of pull it together. Putting myself in the director's hat with this project is, something that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. I've been a part of this field for about 10 years now, and I thought that basically running into these different women over the years and working with them, I've really felt like there needed to be a project highlighting the work that they did in their career. And I know that that wasn't something that's really been out there yet, where it showed just the female investigators in the field. My background and the way I got into this was basically, I was kind of raised by metaphysical family members that taught me like things to do with metaphysics. And, I kind of took a background with that and an interest in the history of, the ancient astronaut theories, basically. I guess, the show Ancient Aliens, I was really into that kind of topic before that show came about. I always felt like there was a hidden side of our history in regards to ancient civilizations and, possibly beings coming down into ancient civilizations and teaching them information and giving them technology. And so that really started my interest in this field. And then a little later on in my life, I moved to LA and I became part of the entertainment industry. But around that same time, I actually started going to conferences. I think Contact in the Desert was actually my first conference about 11 years ago. And I just realized, like, oh my gosh, all my favorite authors are here. And I immediately kind of became embedded into that network. And eventually people started asking me to host their conferences. And then eventually I started giving my own presentation at conferences. And, it was really interesting because there was like this political side of it that I kind of got into too. I've always been kind of in the middle of movements. I feel like I really look at the world in an anthropological way. And I notice when movements are happening, and I really feel that the disclosure movement is something that is historic and it's something that's powerful. And, I've been involved in a lot of kind of political moments in this movement just in the past like 10, 11 years since I started it. And, obviously now I have my own show and, putting out this documentary, but, I've really seen things progress so much in just the past 10 years. And I think that's really amazing. Like, obviously we don't have full disclosure yet, but we're so much closer now than ever before with, what's going on with the UFO hearings. And, I think the public at this point is so much more ready for disclosure than they were when I came into this movement 10 years ago. I've seen a difference with it, a huge difference. And, I just really wanted to highlight these female investigators in this field because I feel that they've done so much work and maybe sometimes they don't get the credit that is due to them. I mean, obviously they have to, but I really thought it'd be incredible to put all these investigators together. And in my mind, when we started making this project, I kind of call it in my mind the Scully project, like X-Files, because I don't know, they're kind of all like in my mind, like a kind of like a version of the Scullys, So I thought that was kind of funny. And I just, there's this Scully effect I talk about at the beginning of the documentary where when the X-Files started, there was this effect that happened where more women became involved in STEM fields because of it. And I feel like, it's important for women to have an idol in this field. And I think that really inspires more women to become involved in UFO disclosure, to have, females in the field to look up to with it. And, it's just really incredible to see how this movement has progressed. And, I like to be involved as much as I possibly can, whether it's UFO hearings, creating documentaries, going to conferences. I'm just happy to have all these women together because I've really looked up to them over the years. And, most of them I've been connected with for a very long time. I don't know Yvonne. I never met Yvonne yet, but I'm so glad she was a part of this. But, Linda and Carrie, I've been very good friends with for many years. And Linda, we've done some interviews over the years. And I always respected your work. So it's amazing to have you all here today. Thank you for being here and being a part of the project.
And I can add that the producer director of the Real X-Files came to me for slides of mutilated animals because he wanted to get it right when they were shooting out
No
in.
way.
Yes.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Real slides of real animals that were mutilated were used to create the scenes in the Real X-Files.
That's
Wow.
fantastic.
That's amazing.
You know what? Let's just open it up. Let's just have an open discussion. I'm just going to hit out a broad question. You know, presidents come and go. Obviously, we haven't had any president yet that has given us disclosure. Maybe Kennedy was on his way, but we know what happened to him. So we got a new guy that's in the White House, and a lot of people are saying he's going to be the disclosure president. We spoke with Tim Burchett. He moments after he got done speaking with President Trump, saying he's the guy. He's going to bring disclosure. But we've seen a little backpedaling recently. We're going to see how it goes. Anybody can chime in, but is the new president the disclosure president?
Musk is going to be given Mars. Musk is going to be given Mars to change into a planet that we will then have our second planet in the solar system. I think that part is going forward.
Yeah, what, 1 million people by 2030, something like that? He's going to have to step on it if that's going to happen, get his starship working a little bit more proper. But you know, we'll see how that goes. It's just Elon saying there's no evidence of UFOs out there. He would know, but I think he's part of the whole connection to it all. He's got NDAs. He knows a lot more than he's letting on, in my opinion. But we'll see about that. The propulsion, obviously, rocket technology has been around way too long. We got to come up with things that don't explode, and it's so volatile. That's you know, something's got to change. But he's a damn good rocket maker, that's for sure. I'm not going to deny that.
And a theatrical denier.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
He's theatrical
Yeah.
in his relationship with everybody. And then it comes across I know that there's been planning behind the scenes for him to do the Earth to Mars transition. But what is happening today is theatrical denial. That's what I call it, for the denials for the purpose of, again, having a theatrical gulf between what is real and what is not. So far, that hasn't changed with him.
Yeah, I just want to say, I feel this is a disclosure administration, as long as it's the people that determine that they're going to bring about disclosure. There has to be an end of censorship, and there has to be just more coming together and advising. Like, he has to be open to hear what a lot of us have to say, because the deep state is not just something you get rid of overnight. I mean, it is so deep. And we have to help this administration by winning the war from within. It's a war on consciousness. We have to recognize the deep state tactics. What's the underbelly of all these different institutions? What is actually really going on? We have to listen to one another. So if we're allowed to do that, if we're protecting our children and their missions and helping them to develop themselves in a way that is not socially engineered or hampered with in the way that we've seen, then we will have an administration that's holding space for a greater disclosure that's coming from humanity. I feel that there's going to be narratives that aren't going to welcome a lot of other information to come into the conversation, which is kind of a concern. So as long as that's not happening, I feel, you know, this is a disclosure administration, but I think it's a seed planting one. I feel like enough has been said. There's the Q drops. There's all these different hints of this much, much larger picture. And I think we have to take it from there, because he can't do this without us. And what I love in Eisenhower's final speech is we have to be a knowledgeable and aware citizenry, and the governments had better get out of the way and let people have peace. And so some of these things have always stood out to me, because, you know, it's up to us. It's really up to us. The last administration wasn't going to make it easy. all these different psyops and false flags that are further entangling people in the problem reaction solution game with the potential false disclosure narrative that is not a true solution, but all part of this sort of engineered reality. We have to be able to see through it to hold this administration accountable. So it is a disclosure administration.
Carrie?
Amen.
I might be unusual in this group, and usually am, but because I've been talking to whistleblowers from above top secret for over 20 years, and some of those witnesses come forward in the public and I interview them, and some stay in the background and never come forward. But I can say that the information I have is that we're already on Mars. We have colonies on Mars and the moon, and we have had for years. I mean, ever since the Nazis came over with paperclip. And I, for one, am very sort of annoyed, I guess you might say, periodically with the UAP hearings, where they have a hearing for, hours with experts who are telling them what's in the skies, that they can't do what they do, etc. And at the end of the hearing, they're still asking themselves, well, do we have crash retrievals? Do we have aliens? Do we have craft from other planets? I mean, it's stupid. There's too much stupidity, and it's a churn that gets into the mainstream and makes it worse. And even my colleagues, and I don't mean these women, these women are brave women, these women are outspoken like me, but I'm saying that a lot of colleagues of mine, play the game because they want to be known, or they want to speak out and have an audience. So they're afraid to actually commit to the real truth. And I know the real truth. I don't have to be, told it by a government, and I don't need some, pundit to get up there and start spouting off about this and that. I know the real truth, and I've been publishing it nonstop for 20 years. And before me, and Linda was before me, she was doing the same thing. And Paula Harris, who's not here, but she was an early pioneer. I mean, and Colonel Corso, in his book, The Day After Roswell, it was talking about commercializing the alien tech. And that was his job. And he brought us, computers and the chip and so forth. I mean, it goes on. And right now they're trying to pretend that none of the stuff that we have been disclosing, and I mean through witnesses that are military, that were talking to me on video repeatedly, because I didn't just interview these people once. I interviewed them over and over again. And we became quite famous for it, in fact. And I flew to meet them in person initially. And so that is huge. And these people on the UAP hearing, bless the ones telling the truth, but they're up against, the lies, and people like Grush, their lives have been threatened. Well, my whistleblowers, they've lost children. They themselves have been killed early. I've got a whole list of them, as a matter of fact. I mean, so this disclosure, talking about disclosure, it's done. We're done. We've been out there, okay, for many, many years. What hasn't happened is that the mainstream and the normies haven't jumped on the bandwagon, but a lot of them are starting to wake up, and they're starting to come over. And I think a lot of the children realize it's true, since, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I think since then that people knew that it was real, that this wasn't a joke. And Spielberg was given inside information when he made that movie. I mean, there's so much disclosure out there that, I mean, even I can't keep up now. There's so much truth. And yet the mainstream narrative is still full of BS. So I appreciate this effort, to talk about these things, but let's get real. Okay. Let's have Luna get real. And I love how gutsy she is, and I think there's hope there. I can say that Trump and the White House, they planned this. Okay. Trump has his ace in the card, which is his uncle, his connection with Tesla and the Tesla tech. That's why he's president, if you really want to know. I mean, and we have ETs, yes, behind us that are pushing us, that have kept me alive. I mean, I've had so many death threats and things that where I almost did die and certain things, you know, but they made sure I didn't. They made sure I was here for this right now. And so I just have to thank them, and I have to thank whistleblowers. I have to thank the military that really knows what's going on, because there's a huge amount of Space Force that knows what's going on, and there's a huge amount of the military that doesn't, and they're at odds. In fact, we have a war in our own military, in the Navy, in the Army, in the Air Force. I mean, they're all at loggerheads, okay, over this. Okay, this is the biggest story to hit humanity since forever. Okay, so, and yet it's still treated like a side issue. You can't have a political point of view of what's going on the planet right now if you don't know what's behind it. The Anunnaki are behind Israel. That's why Israel is targeted. Okay, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about lies upon lies, and all I can say, if you want to know what's real, you should watch my work. You should watch Linda's work, you know, Laura Eisenhower and Yvonne. I mean, we've been doing the hard work. We do the heavy lifting, okay? And we have done for, in my case, over 20 years, because I was, as I say, abducted as a child. I mean, it became my whole life. I work 24/7, even now, okay, even today. And I'll shut up, but I just want to say that, you know, let's push this along. Let's be honest. They're not doing it. Okay. They're not getting there, and they take one step forward and two steps back, and you're back where you begun. So there's too many liars out there, and we need people to be calling them on their lies. We need people to be drawing attention to our work, which is absolutely, I mean, I'm not going to be shy. I think it's incredible. I am amazed by the people I was able to talk to for hours and their truth. And you can tell when somebody's telling the truth. And these are real truth tellers. So, you know, I'm just saying, you know, we've been there, and now we're starting over again, you know, with the UAP hearings. Are we are we alone? You know, come on.
I think Congress is just, they're catching up. You know, they didn't think about this topic seriously. And now all of a sudden they're kind of looking at this topic, but they're not read in. They really have no idea what they're looking at, what
That's
they're
not
hearing,
true.
what
According
questions
to
asked.
Captain Mark Richards, Congress has known, much of Congress actually knows. They lie. They even lied to Stephen Greer when they pretended like he had to bring down the UFOs to teach them. That was bullshit. They've been investigating, doing the tech, inventing this stuff. As I say, it's in Corso's book. It's in plain, you know, out in plain sight, in essence. This stuff, they know, okay, those people, they're lying. Juan O'Savin is lying. You know, he knows, okay, his father, John F. Kennedy, okay, he knew, okay, they killed him over it. These people know, okay, they do. Don't be deceived.
And they're also intimidated as well, obviously.
Right.
I would like to bring up an interesting point, if I can. So there's something really interesting that I was looking at in Ken Johnston, the astronaut Ken Johnston's book. I read it recently, and you know, this kind of really goes along with this discussion here, and it really kind of made me think. And basically, you know, he was an astronaut working for NASA, and you know, he was like a whistleblower with certain programs, and he said in his book that JPL and NASA put out a notice to all the employees. It was kind of a part of their some articles that they were putting out, and basically they kind of made this announcement saying that these researchers came together and they studied the effects of when one civilization meets another civilization that has more technology, encompasses other civilization and technology, the preceding one, then usually the civilization that meets the previous civilization that is much more technologically advanced usually gets taken out or, kind of brought into the new civilization. And basically they were saying in this article that if we, had disclosure, if our race ran into some more another advanced race, then they think that it would wipe out our civilization. And, I really looked at that and I'm like, okay, well, maybe that would be a reason why the government would try to keep this under wraps. But, I just really don't think that that's true. And I think that this has been going on for a lot longer than, government and, what's been going on in the world with just the political side of everything. I think that certain religions were keeping this information under wrap, thousands of years ago. And this is still going on to this day. And it's like, it makes me wonder if we weren't lied to from the beginning, then this wouldn't have been a problem. We wouldn't have needed disclosure. This wouldn't have been this whole issue of like, how are they going to have this soft disclosure program to make this public aware slowly, which I think is what's happening right now. Is like, I think they're trying to like put out this soft disclosure so that it doesn't hit the people too hard. But then also at the same time, they don't want to release some of these technologies because a lot of the technologies that are involved in disclosure are technologies that would make us a free energy society.
And could save our lives and could
stop
the elimination of our population, like with things like COVID. The bottom line is they are killing us and they're doing it methodically. We have an enemy out there that people need to be aware of. We have many enemies and we have alien AI, by the way, invading this planet right now that nobody talks about. Elon Musk is lying to you, okay? He is working for the good guys now, but he is still muzzled. He's still trying to be careful because I guess they'll kill him in a heartbeat. But the bottom line here is that we know, okay, and that ETs are here, and Courtney Brown and his remote viewers are teaching people how to use cameras and seeing the flights of UFOs above our heads day and night, okay, with special vision cameras, et cetera, et cetera. They are out there. You can go up to Lake Tahoe and see them all over the skies at night. And humans have been reporting these UFOs down through the centuries. So, and they're also involved in some of the things like the burning bush and the this and the that. So what we're talking about is real and has been out there now for many eons. But what they're really doing now is more and more trying to dumb down the people, trying to make people like us still like conspiracy theorists. No, it's conspiracy facts. And basically what's happening here is they're in denial. You know that Burkett and Luna and one other person went from Congress, they went to the military base that is holding some crash retrievals. And they said, okay, here we are, show them to us. And the general came to the gate and said, no, you're not allowed, and sent them away. That's what happened, okay? This is what's going on.
I can add another piece. I have over in the last 6 years, I have had 2 interviews that were highly classified. I've had to alter the frequency of voices and still not be able to identify, but I always ask for the DD-214s in military and documents that essentially, at least I think, are evidentiary. And in these discussions, it has been about people working in the big names that you would know in terms of aerospace. And these 2 completely different individuals, they don't know each other. They have described for me working side by side with the category of extraterrestrial known as a tall white or a Nordic, and that they have worked with them on engineering problems. And this was the most fascinating discussion with this one. He said, the tall whites manipulate time to solve problems. And he said, we would be working on something and we hit a problem, and the tall white then projects into the future and does it over and over and over, speeding it up each time as a technique of getting to what the facts are out in the future. And that working with them, he found that they were spiritual, this was his word, but extremely strict. And they don't put up with anything from humans that they're working with. But they have some vested interest in the evolution of Homo sapien. And that is where the rubber hits the road now. We are both a target and a creation. And that if we could get past the stupidity of governments keeping all of this from a planet of 8 billion, there is something so fundamentally immoral about the disconnect between the reality of extraterrestrials on this planet, as another discussion in 1999 that I've never forgotten, that this person knew a lot and said, the truth is, Linda, 3 competing civilizations of extraterrestrials have been fighting over Earth since for 268 million years, or you can round it off at 270, he said. And you can start doing what I did, which I started reading a tremendous number of timeline charts about what was happening on our planet, at least known to scientists. And you will run in to the mysteries of strange events that take out a lot of life, like the one 12,000 years ago that might be linked to a micronova. And one of the physicists who had worked with extraterrestrials had submachine guns in his face going down the different levels at S4 Edwards, said that our being, that if they, the physicists and these others, if they spoke, their families would lose everything. They would probably be put in jail. We're finally at a point where I think that they have made a decision that they have to open this up. And when the Israeli satellite director issued that book 3 Decembers ago and said, everyone says, why can't we get the governments of the world to tell the truth? And the Israeli satellite director said, it isn't us. It's the extraterrestrials that are holding back confirmation and their presence on this planet. And they are going to hold themselves back until they have seen changes on this earth that would help humans evolve out of the terrible situation we're in now, which is we're living in a planet of not only lies, but we're living in a planet in which only the rich want the planet to be sculpted for them. And they really don't care about how much die in the process. That was a real conversation I had with somebody working with an ET. It was very sobering.
Yeah. Thank you, Linda. Wow.
Well, not to be depressing, but if we don't deal, it's what you got. If we don't deal with all of it, all of the facets, then we're kidding ourselves. We've got to deal with the good, the bad,
okay.
and the.
Sorry, but what about Kratsios, who just came out with an announcement that we have the technology to move time and space, which of course we
It's
do.
tall whites teaching us.
Well, we've had it for many, many years, not just the tall
Yeah.
whites. So we're talking about the beings from Aldebaran that came and gave the Nazis the technology.
Nazi.
And others, reptilians, according to William Tompkins, reptilians and Pleiadians giving us technology, reptilians sabotaging our progress. So we are kind of
just a fast insert. I did a 5-hour recorded interview with him before he died. And he said this remarkable, Linda, World War II was an extraterrestrial war fought through human bodies.
Right.
And
we're gonna
probably the same thing is
fight
going on
another
today.
one, and we're going to fight another one. I mean, this is a war. It's an ongoing war, and the lies are plentiful on both sides. Sadly, what I have noticed is that even the good guys have to lie. So this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with, in other words, I think it's up to people like us who actually know the real truth, who've been face to face with others who know the real truth, who've worked in military projects for over 40 years of their lives and then come forward and risk their lives to tell the real truth. That's a whistleblower.
That's right.
Sorry to say, but we're running a little bit out of time here, but I wanted to get everybody's opinion on this, and we could go on for hours, but I suggest everybody go to Nexus to Disclosure and watch the film. You're just kind of getting the tip of the iceberg in this podcast of what this documentary represents. And it's exciting times, like you just said about this drop about manipulating space and time. And there's these things that are dripping every day now, and it's kind of more rapid of what's seemingly right around the corner, that they're going to drop something. Obviously there's national security issues with propulsion and things like that, but free energy, medical advancement, things along those lines, letting us know we're not alone, just simple things like that. We demand it. That's kind of what I think everybody could agree on. We want to know some basic answers and garnish some of this technology that's ours, that we deserve, the people deserve. So let's just go take it around. Apolla, what do you think people should take away from this documentary? And why do you think it's so important that this is coming out now?
Well, I think that it's important that it's come out at this time, because this is such a pivotal moment, and just the point in time that we are in now with regards to what's happening with disclosure. It's definitely been ramping up, with these hearings and, being in the media. Everything that's been happening with it has been really escalating over the last couple years, especially. But I think what's interesting about it and why it's really important right now is because a lot of people are just getting into understanding or getting into the topic of UFOs that weren't really into it before, UFO disclosure. So I think it's really important that people that, maybe are just recently learning about this topic are able to see a documentary that shows all these women and the work that they've done and the investigations they've done over, the past 20 years or so with their careers, and, what they've uncovered, and that this has been going on for a very long time. This isn't something that is new. This is, very important information that these women have been bringing forward over the years. And I think that, hopefully it's also something that, like I said earlier, that will bring maybe more women into the field of disclosure, more women interested in the field of disclosure. Not that there isn't already, but I mean, definitely when I go to conferences over the years, it's usually a lot of older males is the majority of the people at them. So I don't know, maybe it will make a change, and that'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, this is like the OG club of ufology, the women behind it. And they're real life people. They're not fictional characters like Scully's. These guys are real life superheroes, in my opinion, like straight up Lois Lane. And they're willing to put their lives on the line here. Linda?
It would be a real step if there was never a mention of, oh, she's a woman.
Yeah.
Definitely.
If we could live on a planet where every human looked at every other human, forget their male, female, as a fellow human being, that to me is where we should be trying to evolve, not dividing ourselves into men and women.
100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Why should people watch this documentary, Linda?
It's irritating to be candid.
Why should people watch this documentary, Linda?
Because I personally think that once we are finally told the whole truth, we know that there are planets between here and 20 light years out, that we already have proof that there's artificial light at night, that there is so much data. And to be on a planet where there are only a small percentage that are allowed to know what should be the fundamental rights to every human being on Earth, that we're not alone in this universe. And the very fact that leaders, quote unquote, have had this information since World War II. And we are now at 2025 as we are gathered around this talk today. To still be the threat to the reality that everybody is owed as a conscious life form. It is so fundamental. If we continue on this theatrical denial path, God help Earth.
Wow. Definitely, it's the people demand it. Carrie, why should people watch Nexus to Disclosure besides that it's just an all-women panel?
Well, you know, I didn't know when I was participating, maybe it just kind of blew by me. I just figured you wanted to interview people that were sort of, whatever you want to call us, experts in these matters, okay, having to do with disclosure, having to do with what's really going on and off the planet, under the planet, in the seas, you know, inner Earth, etc., interdimensionals. So as far as I'm concerned, it's great that we're women and that we've done the work we've done. And we've managed to fight the good fight and stay with it all these years, which is many years between us, I guess you'd say. But, I think that's like not the big fact of the matter here. The big fact of the matter is that we want and have disclosure, and that the real truth is out there. It's with us, and that there are plenty of people denying it, but that doesn't change the fact that it's out there. And so I just think the more you can learn about this topic, learn from our experiences, what we've come up against, go watch our work. I mean, I do 2-hour interviews and I know Linda puts a tremendous amount of work into her articles, and she, has been doing this forever. The evidence is out there. The evidence is with us. It's all here. I just wish that if they're going to have such a thing as a UAP hearing, that someone stands up to these people and says, you need the documentation that's already out there, and take a look at it and educate yourself before you come to this hearing, and then don't start at ground zero with literally zero. Okay. So that they can make some progress on behalf of humanity in that discussion. And it involves Congress, yes, and kind of parts of the government. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Trump has had the podium and has it all the time. At any moment, he can come out and say some positive things about what's really true. And he damn well knows everything, okay? He knows. And according to 107, he studied with Nixon, and Nixon was taken out of office by the CIA because he knew too much, and because he was about to talk about it, that he was in all kinds of personal turmoil over the real truth. And there are so many people, there's a huge litany of bodies of people who are disclosing, free energy activists, free energy scientists, people that have been killed over this subject, that you can just study that and that alone, and you will see they're hiding stuff from us. And we have got to not stand for it, okay? And so that's why they should watch this. They should listen to everything we are saying today, and they should realize the urgency, because we on Earth are going to face an even bigger war, according to what Project Camelot was told in the early days, that World War I, World War II, and even this war, supposedly, quiet war with Iran and China right now, this is all preparation. I have evidence that our military is being trained to deal with incoming alien races, including a race of androids that is going to try to take over this planet. And so whether it's takeover from within or without, even the CCP, that the takeover, the steal of our election was by gray ETs in concert with the CCP. This is what we're talking about. We have been invaded over and over and over again by so many different alien races. And so why should you watch this? Because it's the most important subject in the whole world. And you better educate yourself and get prepared, because the future is going to be mind-blowing.
And the 17 nights in December of 2024 over Langley, 17 straight nights, they called them drones.
Yeah.
That's the acceptable football to kick around now, drones. But I have talked with two people who work there in Langley, and they told me we did not know what any of those objects were, and that they had access to the airspace directly over Langley for 17 nights.
Right.
This is incredible. So is there some sort of front action that has already started that is going to involve androids? I also have heard that. I don't have any evidentiary proof. But there's also this question about the Tronoloids that were part of a briefing presented to President Reagan. And the Tronoloids were described as insects from a planet and a solar system at approximately less than 20 light years close. And I've heard this now from a variety of people, but Tronoloids and an invasion of androids and insects is what the government thinks that the world can't take. Turn it around. What happens if we are told the whole truth and every Homo sapien becomes a fighter for planet Earth and the truth? Would be a whole different world.
Are we at the end game, Laura?
Yes, we are. And the reason why watching a documentary like this is so important is because there are so many who suffer in silence: abductees, experiencers, SSP survivors, whistleblowers that want their voices to be heard. There's so much denial that is passed down generation to generation. There's so much that we have a responsibility to uphold for our fellow humans, to not allow, silence to rule. When somebody has been abused and is silenced, that leads to a denial of a wound that is very much taken advantage of. Unresolved trauma and amnesia is what they've been taking advantage of. There's trigger events, there's false flags and psyops to keep us in that loop. And so generation to generation, without looking at ancestral patterns, without digging deep into, who you are, beyond family, who your soul is, because you might not even resonate with the family you were born into. It's all about self-knowledge and gaining self-knowledge. And in that, nothing can control us. When we awaken our multidimensional nature, our creative imagination, and we realize how powerful we are, we recognize that they're the powers that stole and we're the powers that be. And when we give each other the mutual love and respect that is something that we need to really work on, we can all have important voices. We can all recognize our purpose. We all will see the uniqueness and the importance of standing strong in your sovereignty with that, instead of following something or just going along with something or being afraid what people think. Those days are over. We don't want any more suffering in silence. It's time to heal as a humanity. It's time to remember who we are. And a documentary like this is going to really kickstart that process. And it's for you to discover from within. We're just here as messengers. We're here with our missions. We're here with what we've been called to do, but it's inside of you as well. And I just hope you'll find the inspiration to stand strong in your truth and don't be afraid, because we in our unity and in our sovereignty are way more protected than in our unconscious wounds, continually masking it with all their tactics to prevent us from really digging deep. So we owe it to ourselves and one another.
Absolutely. Yvonne, what should people take away from Nexus?
Well, I agree with all these wonderful, strong women that I've had the pleasure of, participating in this documentary with. And I appreciate being included in this because I feel that discussing contact, discussing abductions is so important to keep it out there in the public because they're real. This happens to millions of people, starting from early childhood. As Carrie has said numerous times, that's what happened to her. And it follows a person throughout their entire life. And more people are coming forward publicly because they are tired of living a lie. They're tired of living a secret life. So watching something like this, a documentary like this, is going to keep everything to the forefront. And I agree with everyone that we're there. I mean, disclosure is there. There's too much information out there. I keep thinking, as I was listening to everybody throughout the years, through regression, I've heard from hundreds. I've done hundreds and hundreds of hours of regression, but they say, the abductees, experiencers will say, the being or the beings are telling me and telling us that we all have a job to do. We're all being trained. And when the time comes, we will know what to do. And I think we're nearing that time, which I had coined in my book, the urgency, because everybody was feeling something coming. And I think we're coming upon it now. So I thank you for allowing me to talk about my work, and all you powerful, wonderful women. Thank you too. It's nice to see everybody. And Apolla, I hope we work together more and more. This is an excellent, and I'm telling everybody about this. I'm sending everything at the links to all my lists because it's an excellent, it was very well done. And I'm proud to be part of it. Thank you.
Yes,
Excellent.
thank you so much,
Anybody that's watching this podcast, feel free. You could download it, upload it on your social media. There's, we just want to get the word out with regards to the disclosure that's pretty much in our hands. And this whole panel, this discussion, truly awe-inspiring. What a elite group of people participating in this project. And we're excited. Maybe Paula, Nexus 2, maybe a sequel coming up. Find out. I'm sure everybody's on board here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think pretty much everyone here already said that they would love to be a part of a second one. And, I think after seeing the first one, this first one that we just did, obviously that's the introductions of everyone's back history is done. So now maybe in the next one, we can get into the real stuff, the heavy stuff and there's so much more happening just in the time since we filmed, which is about a year and a half ago, or a year ago, I believe. A lot more has happened since then in regards to disclosure with the government and, just everyone's own research. I'm sure they've uncovered more and with their investigative work just in the past few months here. So I think Nexus Part 2 will be very interesting.
The story never stops. Life keeps going, and who knows what's right around the corner. But it's been fun. Everybody, Nexus to Disclosure, The Truth is Classified, available right now. Amazon, Apple, the Genius links below. And let me tell you, it's a worthy watch. Everybody, be safe out there. Thanks for joining us right here at Third Phase of Moon. Keep your eyes on the skies, everybody. We're not alone.
Thank you all.
Over and out.
Thank you.
The government of the United States, since the 1940s, has classified reality. That's where we are, in classified reality. The truth is classified.
This is probably the most dangerous field to be in because they really don't want humanity to know the kind of information that we put out there.
And we have breaking news now, a Pentagon review of decades of government investigations into UFO sightings.
It's a war for truth. It's a war for disclosure. The American public They really want to know. They're tired of being lied to.
We've had a heck of a lot of pushback about this hearing. We've had members of Congress who fought us. We've had members of the intelligence community and also the Pentagon.
There were some attempts on my life.
I've had many death threats.
We're following you. We know where you are.
Let's face it, disclosure's a dangerous game.
There is way more to this picture than we can imagine.
These extraterrestrial biological entities manipulated DNA in already evolving primates to create Homo sapien.
The biggest threat to them is our sovereignty.
Operation Majestic 12 is created.
This all needs to come out. The truth needs to come out.
I think humans need to get ready.
Extraterrestrials are here. They have been based beneath the basins of the oceans and seas of planet Earth for thousands, millions of years.
We're dealing with gatekeepers and a total suppression of information and knowledge.
The leaders, everyone, telling all humans the truth.
These people are idiots. I mean, these people who think they are in charge.
I'm going to pick up what I personally think is the single most important whistleblower leak.
At some point, our government is no longer going to have control over this.